So, hello everybody. Welcome once again to Beyond the Bubbles, the podcast about comics, anime, pop culture, and all that includes. We are here again. I'm Terry Williams, and next to me is Mr. Ben Dunn. How are you, Ben?
Doing well, Terry. Doing well.
Awesome. So, today, kind of wanted to get into the talk of the comic industry, in my opinion. The whole Fables, Bill Willingham, DC...
Kerfuffle.
Yeah, good word. Kerfuffle. I can't say that word, so I'll let you say it. I know that I'm not probably as versed as you are with it, but for those of you that don't know who Bill Willingham is the creator of Fables. He's the creator of The Elementals. What else? I think some other stuff. What else is he?
Well, he did Pantheon, and he did a host of other books as well, but those are probably his most famous creations.
Yeah, I'm sure Fables is probably his greatest, most recognized. For me, I love Elementals. It was one of the stories that I love those books. They were great. There's some great art, great stories.
A lot of people have fond memories of those characters.
Yeah, absolutely. But so for those of you that don't know about this story, basically, and I'm going to say what I know really quickly and let Ben elaborate a little more because I'm sure he's a little more knowledgeable than I am of it. About 20 years ago or so, Mr. Willingham basically went into an agreement with DC to publish his book Fables. At that time, he really, and again, this is coming from Mr. Willingham's perspective, so I'm not saying which is right or wrong or whatever, just giving you a perspective. That the contract was that he would retain ownership, and DC would be the publishing entity. And throughout the years, that relationship has kind of disintegrated, and DC has basically kind of wanted to take control of the properties. Mr. Willingham, of course, doesn't like that and is now looking at taking the property public to the public domain, meaning basically he still owns it, but so does everybody else. So if you want to use it in whatever, you're free to do that, from my understanding, if that's kind of it in a nutshell, correct?
Yeah, it's pretty much, first of all, let me say that we are not copyright lawyers, so we don't know the nuances of the law, but he had an interview, from what I understand, and he made a public statement on his, what's that website where a lot of them...
Is it Reddit?
No, not Reddit, Well, anyway, he made a public statement about his severing his relationship with DC by announcing that his comic book Fables was going to be in the public domain. This has created quite a stir about creators' rights, who owns what, and how does that exactly work. Now, the history of Fables is pretty complicated. It was a very one of the anchor series of the then Vertigo line that DC created, which was supposed to be, I guess, geared more to adult readers. I think they moved Sandman into that area too.
Right, Swamp Thing.
And Swamp Thing, yes, to be able to do more mature storylines and do more mature characters. So apparently, when Bill Willingham made the agreement back in the probably the late 90s, early 2000s. DC was a whole different animal back then. And it was run by comic book people who knew other comic book creators, and they were very much, I guess, in support of comic book creators' rights and comic creators owning their properties. But now enter 2023, and apparently that relationship has soured over the years. And Bill Willingham had enough. He knows that apparently the DC and Warner Brothers, who own DC, owe him, at least in his mind, quite a bit in residuals and payments and things like that. And plus, they did things that were going against his contract. So he decided, instead of trying to sue them and fight them in court, in which case he probably would spend huge amounts of money and time and effort. And he readily admits he's not young anymore. So he said rather that he would go ahead and place his creations into the public domain, specifically Fables. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Fables, Fables is a comic book series that he created based on the idea that fairy tale characters had normal lives in sort of a real world setting. And he created quite a following with that series. And it was one of the it was very popular in the day. And there was a lot of talk about it becoming a movie or TV series and things like that. So he was actually, but he actually was fed up with the treatment he was getting at DC and decided that, you know what, he was just going to go and put it in the public domain. Of course, that opened a whole can of worms. And of course, DC claims that they still own the rights to Fable. And so they're basically challenging anyone who wants to take a chance at it that they'll get sued into oblivion, which is basically the threat that they seem to be putting out there.
Right. It all comes back to basically, in my opinion, and again, this is all strictly my opinion. I'm not speaking for anyone or anything like that. But it's another one of those where the big conglomerate wants to just monopolize the smaller guys. Just eat them up, take other ideas, and give them pennies on the dollar and make all this money.
Yeah, well, what's ironic is that all the characters he used in Fables are all public domain anyway.
Right.
They're all, fairy tale creations that are long been in public. It's his treatment of those characters that were different. That makes it uniquely his. And that is what he's allowing people to do, is to take those creations he actually made and let other people use them in any way, shape, or form that they want. This comes to the idea, well, what exactly are the creator's rights? If Bill Willingham created this from whole cloth, from his mind, he technically should own everything he creates.
Correct.
And this is something that I'm disappointed with DC. I understand. I've been in the business for a long time, and with Anarch Press, we've always been creator rights centric. We always believe that if you created something, you should own it and you should profit from it. And we don't ever try to lay claim on anybody's creative rights. And I thought that DC probably would have learned their lesson with the Joe Shuster, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, debacle,
right?
With Superman, and but apparently they haven't learned that lesson,
right? And again, it's like when back in the '90s when Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, all those guys left. Eric Larson left Marvel and went and opened Image. It was kind of the same thing. The only difference with this that I see is that they basically just said, we're done. We're going to go create our own characters. You keep what you have, Marvel, for what we've made for you, and we're going to go start elsewhere. Because they didn't want, I guess, that fight that, would have ensued. I'm sure if they would have tried to take Gambit and all those characters that they created, Deadpool, all those characters that they created, then there would have been a huge fight, I'm sure, with Marvel. And who wants to go up against a entity like that has money to just throw at attorneys and court fees and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, the Image guys, they saw the writing on the wall. They knew that they were the ones selling the books. They were the ones that were getting people to pick up these characters. And they felt that they deserved more. And corporations, they just don't feel like they feel any obligation, to take care of them in any shape or reward them for all their hard work and effort.
Right.
And so the idea of the Image, I can understand them and doing that. Some of them have gone back to working for Marvel and DC, but that's okay. You're free to do whatever you want. But the fact of the matter is that they wanted complete control over their creations, and that's not unreasonable.
No.
And I would think that companies for the most part should understand that if you create something that's going to make you lots of money and you have really nothing to do with it other than giving you the forum, to expose your characters, then they should be fair and compensate the creator for what it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think that if you created Warrior Nun, if you would have created Warrior Nun for DC, and you would think that the writing of the contract would be so that maybe they own the rights to the character, but you get a constant residual from everything that they do with the character, from the comic sold to the marketing to the toys to all that kind of thing. And that's just not how it is. It's like they give, from my understanding, and again, you're way more versed than I am. My understanding is they pay hey, here's what we're giving you, and thanks. Now we're going to use this however we want, and whatever we make is whatever we make.
Right. Well, I mean, it's one thing if Bill Willingham had just sold Fables to DC.
Right.
If he had just out and out said, look, if DC said, we'll buy Fables off of you, this is the price, and he accepted that price, then he no longer has any claim on Fables. Now, but he didn't do that. He remained and retained control of his creations and wanted to be fairly compensated in his opinion, and he and DC wouldn't do that. They were being very unreasonable, at least in his mind. Now, whether they were or not, I don't know the nuance of the contract, but it seems to me that if Bill Willingham didn't actually control his characters or his creations, why in the world would he state that? I mean, it would be foolish for him to make a statement like Fables is in the public domain if he knew he didn't own any part of it.
Right.
So he either is a very brave man or a very foolish man.
Yeah, or there's something, there could be something hidden in the contract of somewhere that, he might have missed, or who knows. But for me personally, I can absolutely 100% see his side of the story. Do you think that one of the first things I thought about when I read this story about this is it's kind of strange, or I can't think of the word I'm looking for, where it's happening now during the SAG-AFTRA strike, all that kind of stuff. Do you think this ties in any to that, and him saying, hey, you know what? I do own this, and I don't like what you're doing, and I should be paid a fair wage. So, yeah, I'm going to do something else with this.
Well, I'm sure he was compensated for doing the work.
Oh, I'm sure.
But the thing is that's not the issue. The issue is whether he has control over his work, and whether or not they owe him for exploiting his work in other venues and in other media without consulting him or fairly compensating him.
Yeah.
Because if they make a movie or video game or a TV series out of it and they don't let him know or compensate him for it, then yeah, that's definitely not fair or ethical in my opinion.
Right.
The thing of that is that how does that look on DC? If they treat him this way from a creator who actually claims he owns the rights to his creation, if I was a creator working for DC, do you think I would look at that and say, wow, is this how DC treats creators?
Right.
Would I want to work for DC?
Yeah.
Would I want to give them anything that I created to them? If I know that maybe later on down the line, they're going to take it away from me, because I can't fight it.
Yep.
So it's really going to give, I think, a lot of creators pause before they decide, what, I'm signing for DC,
Right.
I mean,
and I don't think it's really just DC. I think it makes, for me as a creator, if I was a creator, which I'm unfortunately not, but if I were, I would really look at all of the big companies, Marvel, Image, DC, all of them, and say, hey, where do all of them like this? Let me go back and read my contract and make sure that I do own my rights, make sure there's nothing in it. And I'm sure most people do that. But there has to be, in this particular case, DC is saying, no, we strictly own it. And Mr. Willingham is saying, no, I'm still the owner. Somewhere in there, someone's not telling the truth, or someone's misread something or misinterpreted something, because it can't be that two dissenting views that are so far apart.
Well, truth be told, I think that had DC been more reasonable, and tried to address Bill's concerns, and the thing is, they probably could have done that very easily, but for some reason they decided to take the hard line and treat him thusly, and that forced Bill to play his hand.
Yep.
And now they're in a, I'm not sure if, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not sure if DC actually cares about this, but it's the fact that they don't want to set a precedent.
Right.
If they let him do this, and how many other creators are just going to say, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and do that too.
Yep.
And where would DC be? I mean, DC is in sort of a jam right now because in less than a decade, Superman and Batman are going to be falling into the public domain, at least the Golden Age versions of them. So they have to be, they're preparing ahead of time to make sure that they still retain control of that.
Right.
And so it's interesting because they wanted to treat him like a work for hire. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Well, work for
contract
hire
labor,
means,
basically.
Yeah, it's contract labor. You do the stuff, you get paid for it, and you're done.
Yeah.
See, I used to work for Marvel on the Mangaverse, and I was work for hire.
Spider-Man was great, by the way.
So anything I created for the Mangaverse is theirs, and I know that. When I signed the contract, I knew that. I was really, the beauty of it is that I didn't really create anything new for the Mangaverse. I just took their basic characters and just, did my versions of them. The only new character I created was a character in the original Mangaverse first series that was used in Secret Invasion.
Okay. Hold on. You've buried the lead.
Yes.
What character?
There was a Skrull character named Skaar.
Oh.
Yes, I created that character.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the end credits, I'm in the end credits.
Okay.
Yeah. But I knew I wasn't going to get any compensation for it. I knew because I knew what I was getting into when I signed the contract. So if you know what you're getting into, then you have no right to complain later on down the line.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, this is true, like, for instance, with Wolverine, which was created by Len Wein and Herb Trimpe, and they didn't get any residuals at all for Wolverine
Exactly.
at all.
And you would think that, and I understand the business aspect of it, 1,000%, I understand the business aspect of it, but you would think as a company as large as Marvel that creators brought something as big as Wolverine to you and gave it to you, basically created it while working for you. You would see it fit to give them something extra. Like, hey, it's made us $1.5 million over the last 10 years. We're going to give you $200,000. Just something to say, hey, we appreciate what you did.
We'll give you at least free health care.
Yeah, something. But instead they just like, oh, well, that's what you did for us. Thanks, we appreciate it, and send them on their way.
Yeah, this all goes back to the original early days of comic books when it was all work for hire. It was just, and it just hasn't really changed all that much.
Right.
Because back in the Golden Age, Silver Age, Brian said, no one in their minds would ever thought these characters to become multi-billion-dollar properties.
No one ever thought,
Nobody ever thought that.
Even in the 60s, it was still one of those things. Because I saw someone had posted an article not too long ago about this lady in New York in 71 had this big article about the rise of comics. And if you have that Superman 1 that recently sold for $325, it's just going to go up. And people basically laughed her out.
Yeah, $325. Who would pay that much for a comic?
And now it's like, oh, wow, great. And it's one of those things, but, at the time, you don't think that.
Nah.
Man, even the creators themselves didn't think that. They thought, and, going back and watching a lot of stuff with those older creators, some of the interviews that they did, that kind of thing, they thought, I'm paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having fun paying the bills. That's what I'm doing.
That's right. It was comic book artists and creators were basically, journeymen. They went from one company to another, trying to find as much work as they could, and that was the way it was looked at for decades. It wasn't until Neil Adams started coming along and started advocating for creators' rights,
right?
Especially for Jack Kirby and Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who were basically penniless, at the time, and they created Superman, so it was that brought a lot of attention to creators' rights, and that's when things started to change as far as creators' rights is concerned. But in this Bill Willingham case, I'm not privy to the contract, but apparently he felt that the people that he originally was working with when he signed the agreement were no longer there, and he felt that the people running I'm not sure how old the contract is. If they're still working on the original, it'd be up to DC to honor whatever the provisions are.
Right.
Because it's a contract,
Exactly.
So, but, I wish him luck because, right now, a lot of people are talking about actually doing it, and some people have suggested that if enough people do it, then there's no way that DC is going to sue everybody.
Right.
Because it would just cost too much money to sue every single person.
Sure. Absolutely. So, but again, it's one of those things where, and this also affects, when I was reading the article, there's also a video game that he helped create that they've taken a lot of, and I think that's part of his other issue, is they've taken a lot of liberties with his characters and wanting to change things and do this and that without consulting him. And it's like, hey, a simple phone call or email saying, hey, Mr. Willingham, we want to do this. Yeah. What do you think about this? Mm-hmm. You get his opinion and his input, and you may be able to come to some type of an agreement instead of just like, we're not even going to consult him.
Well, I can understand that because, deal with a Warrior Nun is that they didn't really consult me on anything.
Well, yeah, but again, you sold the rights. So you kind of knew.
I did sell the rights. That is true.
But it would have been nice to get,
it would have been
what
nice,
do you think? Hey, Mr. Dunn, what do you think with your creation? Yeah. So, so I'm going to segue real quick into something because I was looking, I'm doing an upcoming show, and it comes part of this, I think you hold out on us, Ben. I'm just going to tell you, I think you hold out on us.
This is producer Joshua jumping in. You definitely held out on us.
And the reason I say this is, one, I just found out today that you create a Scar, or Scalar, which is unreal.
Just a wild.
Secondly,
just a wild
and
thing.
even bigger, when I was looking at Cowtown Comic Con that's coming up, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And oh, look, Ben's a guest. And I scrolled to your bio and read, and I was reading, Ben, creator, Warrior Nun, blah, blah, blah. Illustrator for A Scanner Darkly. I told this to Josh. Josh, what is your reaction?
What the hell, dude? What the hell, man?
I wasn't an illustrator. I was an animator.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Animator.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, that's an interesting story. When they were, they actually did a cattle call. They were looking for animators. They were actually not looking for animators. They were looking for comic book artists in the area. And just as a lark, I decided to go ahead and apply. And I got an interview. I had to drive to Austin. I was living in Dallas at the time. And I drove to Austin to interview. I showed them my portfolio. I did the interview. And they said, well, we'll get back to you. And then a couple of days later, I got an email saying I was hired. Yeah, it was easy as that. Yeah.
Wow.
And I moved to Austin for a period of almost a year. Where we were working on Scanner Darkly, and we were working on. I was working on doing the animation.
Wow.
So
not only
if you look in the movie, I left a lot of Easter eggs in there.
I am not only a huge fan of the book, but Richard Linklater is maybe my favorite director of all time. So when Terry comes up to me, he's like, "You ever heard of a movie called Scanner Darkly?" I'm like, not only have I heard of it, I've watched it probably 100 times. So yes.
Wow. Well, that's great, man. Yeah. Wow. Like I said, if you look closely, I've left a lot of little Easter eggs throughout the movie.
Cool. So did you get to meet any of the folks?
No, I didn't meet any of the actors.
Okay.
I only met Richard Linklater. I didn't meet him. I went to a party where he was at, but I didn't really get a chance to really talk to him or say anything to him.
That's still really
cool.
You
still met him though.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Wow.
And it was great to know a bunch of talented local Texas artists, and it was just a great. It was just a great time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That animation style is so fascinating.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
He's done a couple movies like that. He did Waking Life, which is another movie with
that was just sort of prototype.
Yeah, that was the prototype. But what was there anything different or unique about working on that project in terms of animation? Was there anything?
It was difficult.
Yeah.
Heck, the thing is that he shot the entire movie in live action.
Yep.
And we rotoscoped every single aspect of it. He didn't want to add anything really different in it so much as this is the director would tell us, well, we want this to be in this scene, so you need to add that in, So it was really it was really interesting because we were working on some sort of proprietary animation software, and it was a lot of fun, but it was very hard work.
Wow.
Who was the hardest person to animate? Was it Keanu, Robert Downey Jr., or Woody Harrelson?
I don't know.
Or Winona Ryder. Winona Ryder's in that movie too.
The animation, unlike Waking Life, the teams, they were broken up. into there's team Keanu. There was team.
Oh,
They
okay.
actually were teams that actually worked on specific characters.
I
was
love
more of a
hearing this.
background artist. I did a lot of the scut work for the like everyday things.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
I
so
did a lot
cool.
of scramble suits.
Oh, so you definitely left a lot of Easter eggs
Yeah,
just
they're
all
gonna be
around
all
there.
over. Yeah, now I have to go back and like break
Yeah.
down scene by
We're gonna
scene.
see like Warrior Nun like
Yeah.
posters in the
Yeah.
background.
Oh, well, no, I didn't do anything that obvious.
Just in the background of the home. Just
That would be
Ben
great.
Dunn, Ben
That
Dunn,
would- yeah,
right?
Ben
His
Dunn, yeah.
signatures just everywhere.
Signatures everywhere.
I was mostly just doing all the scut work, like hands and close-ups
Right.
and backgrounds and things like that. So, but they were specific because once the production started, they found out which animators worked really well with doing the characters, and they just sort of separated those teams, and then other teams still had to do the, a lot of the backgrounds and, non-character animation and things like that. So it was all a team effort, and we pulled it off. I think it only went like only a month or two over schedule. But
That's
that's
actually
good.
very
That's
impressive,
that's really
especially for animated.
Yes, especially for anime, yeah.
That's
And for it to be such a cult classic now, I mean, it's since, again, I had zero knowledge prior to seeing your name in A Scanner Darkly and getting the reaction I got from Josh when I mentioned A Scanner Darkly. I went and watched it and I was like, oh, this is really good. And I can see why it has a cult following, but I was like, man, I missed out. And again, Ben is holding out. Next, we're going to find out Ben created Wonder Woman.
yeah. Ben secretly just an ageless vampire created
by the way,
all the
the
comic-
pantheon of heroes. There's go back in every book. There's a little Ben Dunn written somewhere and everything.
This is what I always say to new creators. That you shouldn't be intimidated by what has come before. You should only be concerned about what you could do in the future. And if you have an idea in your head, don't keep it locked up in your head. It doesn't do anybody any good by keeping it in there. You need to expose it to the world because you never know what you might create the next Star Wars. You create the next Harry Potter. Those were all creations that nobody cared about when they were trying to get people interested in it.
Right.
And now they're huge pop culture phenomenons.
Right.
I mean, George Lucas, for what, 10, 15 years was trying to sell Star Wars?
Yeah.
And nobody said, science fiction is dead.
Yeah.
Nobody wants science fiction.
Yep.
And or they just thought it was sort of niche. But one guy took a chance, and now look where it is now. And Harry Potter, same way. I mean, J.K. Rowling for 11, 12 years trying to get that book published.
Yep.
And she was lucky that some editor daughter read the manuscript and loved it.
Yep.
So that just goes to show you sometimes, serendipity comes in or luck or pure chance. But the fact of the matter is she did it, and somebody liked it.
Yeah, but they did it. That's the whole point.
They did it. Exactly. They did it.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that, you know me, I'm a huge independent guy. I want to support, every time I'm at shows, I go to the independent creators, the artists, the writers. Some write and draw and all this, and I love some of the books. In fact, I think those are some of the best stories out there. And I think it's because, like you said, it's from the heart. This is my creation. I own it. I want to see it flourish, so I'm going to pamper my baby and make it blossom, which is one of the things I really like about you with Antarctic Press is I see, I follow you on Facebook a lot, and I see your posts almost daily or weekly where you're always wanting people to send you their ideas, their submissions, their creations, and you give them, you could be that person who gives them that chance to get their stuff out there.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really cool.
It is cool. I love that. I love that idea. I mean, people who are already established, they're already established. So they don't need any help, getting out into the public, but still, I've always seen it's really important that if you can give a new creator a chance to get his idea out there. I mean, I would love to, if I had all the money in the world, I would give everybody a chance to get their stuff out there. But, the thing is, it starts with you. You have to actually be the one to actually create it and then produce it. You can't imagine how many times I've had people come up to me and say, I got this great idea. And I say, well, then do it. Just do the idea. And then people come, I get emails from people, I got this idea. And I say, well, I really can't do anything with it until you actually do the story.
Right. Right. See the story and I can put the art to it or whatever.
Then I can decide whether, it can be, we can use it or not,
So what I'm hearing is there's a chance for Terry's stick figure universe.
Hell yeah.
It's all it'll be.
You write a good
stick
enough
figures.
story, and you can.
Someone else could
I
draw it.
want to just go back and just. He said universe. He didn't even say story. He's got like a pantheon of films planned out.
Oh,
there.
You never know. I mean,
My
the thing is that
I have all these ideas, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all it is an idea.
if you create a story that people can connect with, then that's really all it takes.
Right.
You just got to convince people that what you're doing speaks to them.
Right.
That they want to support you with it.
Yeah, which again, going back to our original topic with the Mr. Willingham thing, I think that if all of the companies kind of had that mentality and that, hey, we want to support you, we want to get you out there, we want to give you a chance, which not that the big companies don't, because they do. I mean, that's where a lot of guys have started or got their break. I'm not saying that, but if they support it in the back end as far as, hey, we're going to give you residuals, we're going to give you a better contract, we want you to own your product.
Absolutely.
It would be amazing.
If DC had done the right thing, they should have just said, yes, you're right, Bill. We were wrong in doing this. We were sorry we treated you this way. Let's work something out. And they could have probably profited from Fables for decades.
Yeah.
But now, they've poisoned the well.
Yeah.
Okay. They forced the creator to take one of his creations and publicly say, I'm done. It's public domain. You do whatever you want. I mean, what does it take for a creator to do something like that?
Well, yeah, and man, that's what I like. When I read his statement and what he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he basically said, if you guys say you own it, but I own it, instead of you owning it, I'm going to let everybody own it. Which was really, to me, it was like, wow, that's saying something where he's basically giving his property to everybody in perpetuity.
Right. Well, I mean, you have to kind of wonder what his state of mind was when you do that, because I could be wrong, but this may be the first time a creator has ever done that. I think maybe, if correct me if I'm wrong, Dave Sin did it with Cerebus, but I'm not quite sure 100%. Because I recall that maybe he said that he was letting Cerebus fall into the public domain.
But I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look at that.
I'm not sure either. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
I heard something like that, but it may be there's some precedence. But as far as I know, I don't think every creator's ever done that before.
Yeah, that's
while he was still alive.
Yeah. So that's huge. I mean, think of someone like in 10 years or 20 years, McFarlane said, "Hey, Spawn's public domain."
Well, he can do that.
Yeah,
because he owns it.
But you never see that a creator don't release their product to just everybody to say, okay, have at it.
I mean, sometimes a creator, I'm not sure if this has been a set in precedent, but sometimes the idea of copyright laws, you have to understand is that, and like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know a little bit about it, is that it was set up so that people who did creations can profit from their creation in their lifetime, and then copyright laws kept changing over the years, probably because of one corporation,
right?
Walt Disney, because the Mickey Mouse, they are deathly afraid of letting Mickey Mouse fall into the public domain, so they kept altering the copyright laws,
right?
And the thing about it is that now it's no longer what it was set up to be. It was now a venue for large corporations to retain ownership of creations that long should have been fallen into the public domain. To allow the whole idea behind public domain is that the public at large can utilize the creation and do something different with it to keep it alive.
Right.
But the corporations have taken that and decided that we want to hold on to them because we want to make money off of them.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate, that they feel that way. But I think things are starting to change a little bit,
If nothing else, this whole imbroglio has opened some eyes. It's made people think. It's made hopefully some creators step back and take a look. It's hopefully made the big conglomerates sit back and take a look at how they treat people. Hopefully, it's one of those things that we see a bunch of improvements from. It's the first pebble that creates the ripples that go out and make change. Let's hope that.
Well, let's see what happens, because I think a lot of people are fed up with, corporations taking people's intellectual properties and just claiming them as their own, when in reality they had nothing to do with it other than just providing the venue for them to let their creations be known.
Right. Well, that is some stimulating conversation today. I feel like, it was one of those discussions we had that's comic related, but it was more about kind of just everything. Yeah, thing. This was actually one of those that were fun. And we found out today to look for Easter eggs in A Scanner Darkly, and that Ben has done way more than he tells us about. Next episode, we'll find something else that I'll give you another little tidbit of whatever else I found that Ben did and let you know. But again, folks, we appreciate you joining us. This is a lot of fun. I enjoy talking comics. I enjoy talking pop culture. I enjoy talking anime. I enjoy talking to Ben. So if you enjoy it, please go hit that like button, subscribe. We're on YouTube. We are also now on iTunes and Spotify. So please go check us out, subscribe to us. And again, feel free to comment, good, bad, indifferent. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you want to see. We want to bring you guys what you want to see. Thanks, folks. I'm Terry Williams, and this is Mr. Ben Dunn. We appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.